Joining us now to analyze today's headlines is Chenjerai Kumanyika. He's an assistant professor of communication studies at Clemson University. Hi, Chenjerai.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing well, thanks for joining us. Hundreds of people have been kidnapped by the Islamic State in Syria's Homs province, a day after the militant group captured the town of Al-Qaryatain. The 230 people estimated to have been captured are Christians, many of whom escaped to Homs to avoid violence in Aleppo. ISIS claims it has kidnapped those people accused of collaborating with the Syrian regime of President Bashar al-Assad. The mass abduction comes just a day after a mosque in Saudi Arabia was bombed, killing 15 people and injuring many others. The mosque was near the Saudi border with Yemen, and ISIS has also claimed responsibility for that attack, which is thought to have been carried out by a suicide bomber. Well, Chenjerai, clearly ISIS is capable of operating on many fronts all at once and have escalated their attacks more than a year after they emerged on the scene. How effective can the U.S. and other countries be in simply fighting back militarily?
I think this is the right question. The disproportionate focus on military strategies, I think is part of how we wound up in this mess to start out with. We destabilize regions and create all kinds of, conditions that make it easier for people to recruit people into these terrorist activities. And so all intelligent commentators on the issue are really calling for a more comprehensive strategy that would address those conditions and also strengthen local governments, etc. Meanwhile, last night in the GOP debate, the prevailing attitude was that the U.S. can somehow bomb their way out of everything. And that sounds ridiculous, but I don't think it's pure incompetence either. I think it comes from a set of priorities that result from a military-industrial complex that Eisenhower and even Colin Powell criticized.
Well, let's turn to that debate. The first presidential debate ahead of the 2016 elections took place last night. The 10 most popular Republican hopefuls debated one another at a live televised event sponsored by Fox News. While Donald Trump made the most colorful statements, such as defending his anti-Latino racism, most media reports concluded that there was no clear winner. Senator Rand Paul and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie sparred with one another. Ohio Governor John Kasich, who is a newcomer to the field of hopefuls, came away appearing relatively sane. And the sole woman in the group, Carly Fiorina, also emerged as somewhat promising. Jeb Bush and Scott Walker, who had polled among the top three candidates alongside Trump, did not shine last night. Mike Huckabee and Marco Rubio, who have slipped in the polls, reiterated their opposition to women's reproductive rights. Well, Chenjerai, Republican primaries are generally where the crazy usually emerges clearly. What did you make of last night's debate?
Well, I think the crazy came out and the bigotry came out. I mean, here's a party who claims to be trying to change its view of being a bigoted party, and yet Donald Trump's bigotry, sexism was explicitly on display. The whole conversation was about being scared of hugging Obama. We're scared of Muslims. We're scared of women, everybody. So it's really interesting. I was surprised to see that healthcare was not talked about very much, since that has been like a key focus of the GOP, repealing Obamacare. That only came up a couple of times in the debate. So I think this was really, it made for great television. And unfortunately, Fox has a policy of making, high ratings, tense television, politically charged television that unfortunately miseducates a huge section of the public.
And finally, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has released its monthly jobs report for July. The highly anticipated report shows that the economy added 215,000 new jobs last month. But the official unemployment rate remains relatively high at 5.3%. The fields of construction and manufacturing added the most jobs. Average hourly earnings rose very slightly by 0.2%. According to Reuters, quote, wage growth has been disappointingly slow, but tightening labor market conditions and decisions by several state and local governments to raise their minimum wage have fueled expectations of a pickup. The Federal Reserve is expected to increase interest rates in September based on this report. Well, Chenjerai, is this report enough to make you optimistic about the future of the U.S. economy?
I'm sorry to say it's not. Let's be clear. We're experiencing more than wealth and income inequality than any time in the 1920s. And, these job reports are tricky because people in the GOP love to use them to somehow conclude that their policies would have been better for the economy than Obama's policies. But I think when we talk about unemployment, for example, the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out a variety of different kinds of reports. And I think a better one to look at is the U6 rate, which includes marginally attached workers, part-time workers, and people, like a more expansive view of the civilian labor force. And when we look at that rate, it's a lot higher than 5.3%. I think, it's more like 10, it dipped down to like 10%. And you really start to get the idea that this economy is suffering, and I think we're going to have to really change things at a structural level.
Well, Chenjerai, thank you as always for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you.
Chenjerai Kumanyika is an assistant professor of communication studies at Clemson University. He's our daily Newsflash guest expert. This is Uprising. By the way, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/uprisingradio, as well as on Twitter, twitter.com/uprisingradio. We post every day, and we'd love for you to keep track of everything that we do on this program. Our website is uprisingwithsonali.com. We'll be right back.